Hello everyone, thanks for joining me. This video is for the Hobby Horse Club. I am what Shay calls a tag-along member, but technically I am a member at large. When you form a group, the original members are considered charter members, and anyone who joins after that are considered members at large. Just so if any of you have watched her videos and you're trying to figure out what she's trying to say, that's what she's trying to say. Alright, this is a 12 by 12 two-page layout that I am getting ready here. Now, I will tell you this project went down a rabbit hole. There were so many things that as I started working on it didn't work, and it went in a different direction than I thought it would, but in the end I really liked the way it turned out. These pictures are of my oldest son, and they are from his prom when he was a senior in high school. So to start with, I used some light blue 12 by 12 paper, and I'm cutting down this pattern paper. This pattern paper is from Recollections, and I cut that to 3 by 12, and then a little bit later I'm going to add that red strip. Now, Craig's favorite color is red, and so to kind of honor that while I'm thinking about him today, I decided to use this red cardstock. At first, this was actually going to be the page that was, as you looked at the scrapbook layout, was going to be on the right. And this is where that rabbit hole comes in, because once I started fiddling with it and I started getting to where I could finish this page, it just didn't work. So we tried something different. But as you're watching this progress video, I guess, there's a couple things I do want to talk to you about with scrapbooking. Number one, you need to determine what type of scrapbook you want to make. You can make a mini album. You can make a traditional scrapbook. This is considered more of a traditional 12 by 12 scrapbook. You can do 8 by 8, 6 by 6, just about any size that you can imagine you can do. For scrapbooking, you're going to need an album of your choice, or if you're making your own, that's fine. But an album of your choice, and you're going to need some solid colors of cardstock and some pattern paper. Pattern paper is wonderful. Pattern paper is a wonderful tool to have. I suggest that you buy the paper stacks from your big box stores, Michael's, Joann's. I've even seen them at Walmart. They give you a lot of bang for your buck, and they're just great. Some other supplies you're going to be needing are some good scissors and trimmer. I use a Fiskars trimmer. I love mine. If anything goes wrong with it, Fiskars guarantees them for life. You just fill out their online form and they will take care of you. I just recently had one that the wire went bad in, and all I had to do was email them, show them the pictures, and they sent me a new casing where the wire had been replaced. So super good. Okay, as far as adhesive goes, and I do contradict myself in this video, so I'm just telling you, as far as that goes, but you're going to want to use tape as much as you can, because you can get tape up, but you can't get glue up. If you're pretty darn sure that an item's where you want it to be, you can by all means use glue. In this case, I used some glossy accents because it's what I had on my desk. I used a tape runner from Scrapbook Adhesives, and I really love this stuff. It's extra sticky, and it's pretty easy. If you like put it down wrong, you can pretty much pull it back up real slowly, but you can get it back up. Some other supplies you may want as you get more and more into scrapbooking is a die cutter. I do have one, and so I was using things that I already had. All these little pieces you see on my desk right now actually are pieces that I had cut from a previous project. I've been working on some cards for a swap, and so any extra pieces, I just put them in a bag, and then in this case I had enough to spell out the word spring. I used a die cutting set, alphabet set that I bought at Hobby Lobby. I'm not sure what it's called, but I just cut those out of the same red paper I used behind them. And I'm going to use a T-roller here just to line everything up. T-rollers are fairly cheap. You can do it with a pen and a ruler and just measure it all down the length if you want. I just happen to have my T-roller out, so I used what I have once again. Now, when you're scrapbooking, you also need to kind of decide beforehand what pictures you're going to use, because in scrapbooking you kind of want to remember the rule of 3 or the rule of 5. And that just simply means that as you go along, you want to have 3 of one thing, or 3 items of the same color, or 5 items of an item. The reason that that's important is it gives your eye a place to rest, and it keeps the scrapbooking page from becoming too busy. I have seen lots of really pretty layouts and things done on YouTube channels, and love them, but they are so busy it's hard to decide what to look at first. And this one does get a little busy on me, but the pictures I feel are still the focal point of this project. I glued down the alphabet letters using my glossy accents onto those tags, and then I attached them to my scrapbook page. The red mat that you see is 6.5 inches by 4.5, and then the white mat is 6 inches and a quarter by 4 inches and a quarter. And I'm going to be using those to lay my picture on. And in this case, this one isn't going to change, but the one I'm going to end up using on the right-hand page was not oriented in the direction that I wanted, so I ended up using my scrapper solution, or undo, to pick that up. Once again, since I have a lot of these supplies out and on my desk, I went ahead and cut some grass out of some scraps I have to embellish the bottom of this page. I feel like that it really needed something to kind of ground it, and this was the perfect thing to do it. And I'm just going to attach that to my page using a tape runner. And I do fiddle with this a little bit to get it straight and like I want it. After I'm satisfied with the placement of the grass, I'm going to go ahead and attach those 2 photo mats to my page. I'm using a little bit of baker's twine from my collection to wrap around that corner of that photo mat, just to kind of dress it up a little bit. And it is pretty much held in place by the tape that's holding the photo mat in place. I do the same thing with that fishtail banner right there. And I really like the look enough to where some of the circles I had, I decided it would be a cute little embellishment just to tuck one behind there. And you'll see in the end that the entire progress, whichever one you want to call it, was well worth my effort. Now, when you're attaching the piece to the side, just be real careful to line it up. I did corner around the corners on the inside just so that it was consistent. And you see my phone just a second ago. I was talking to my husband, which is the other part of why I'm ending up having to do a voiceover. If you have any rough edges on your pieces, just use your fingernail file and clean those up. So now I'm actually working on the other page, and I put down the elements, and I'm working on the grass right now. It's actually a little bit easier to do after the first one. When I lay down, I'm going to use the edge of that paper and trim that even, and add some more of that tall grass as well, so that as you look at the page from the top, the 2 pages together will be consistent. You can actually do this little trick if you have pictures from completely different events. That rule of 3 and 5 would apply just as long as you use the same or similar colors. You can definitely tie the 2 together. Scrapbooking is a great way to preserve memories, not only for now, but for the future generations, for your children, your grandchildren. And they are a prize to keep. Moving along, I'm taking some very pale purple ink and sponging the edges of these clouds. They are going to be floating in the background kind of towards the top on my photo layout. And you're going to see later on that I do decide to add this element to the left hand side page as well, to once again to tie the two together. There is a lot of fiddling with this project because you just want to get them right, and if you don't like the placement of things, you can always go back and change them, especially if you've just laid them there. That's the other reason, like I said before, you can use your undo if needed to undo something literally. So I'm going to create another photo map rounding the corners. This one is the same size as the other. The bottom one is 6.5 by 4.5. The top one is 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. And I will end up changing this because the orientation did not need to be horizontal. It needed to be instead of being landscape, it needed to be portrait. And this is not a fact that I realized right now, but I will later, I promise. And I'll fix it, and it was very easy to pull this up and go ahead. Using some more baker's twine, once again, to keep this these pages consistent. So this is such a fun project. I can't help but say it again and again because I had a really good time. I'm once again going back to my stash and trying to decide what, if anything, I want to do on that right hand side. After a little bit of playing around, I decided to use a white banner on the back and the light yellow on top of that. That's going to be a great place for journaling. And I use these tiny little tags. They are from set with Your Next Stamp. And I'm going to be using those same letter dies and die cutting the word prom from that red cardstock. And just like I did with the first one, I'm actually going to string these through a piece of twine and hang them on the bottom right hand edge so that when you're looking down the page, it's going to be cohesive. Now this little piece wanted to pick up on me, so I just went ahead and taped that back down. And now I'm going to make sure the placement is exactly where I want it and remove those bolsters. I buy my bolsters from Judy Morrow in the Sticky Stuff store. I will try to remember to put her information down below in the description box or in my blog post. Her shipping is very reasonable and her prices are great. These bolsters are strong. I have teased that you could take a few of these bolsters, put them on the back of a toddler, and stick them to the wall for a little bit. Of course, no one would actually do that, but kind of a silly thought anyway. Hey, you're talking to a woman whose youngest son was once tied to a tree with toilet paper. Yes, it was many, many, many years ago, but it's true. So I'm going to use my heat gun real quick and just dry that little corner. I did end up having to use my undo, and to make sure it was dry, I just used that. And then there were a couple other little places that actually a baby wipe had touched, and I just used my heat tool to fix that as well. I used some tiny little drops of glossy accents to glue down the letters for the word prom there. Now I used my Misty and I stamped 3 sets of flowers. I did cut out the coloring portion for the most part, and if you want to see that, let me know, and I can always post that video separately from this. But all I do is just, I colored all the green at once, and then red and yellow or whatever color I was using until I was done. Then I die cut my pieces using my Vagabond I bought my Vagabond at Hobby Lobby and I paid 30 bucks for it. It was actually on clearance. And it's still under warranty. It works great, and I had just recently had one that a regular Big Shot Express that went bad, and it was under warranty, and I sent it back, and the company sent me a brand new one. So actually now I have two Vagabonds. One's a Vagabond 2 and one's a regular Vagabond. But the other one's just going to stay in its box, and one day I'm going to use it or gift it or whatever. So along with the flowers that I just die cut and colored and all that good stuff, I took out some others that I had in my stash, but I decided that I didn't like that little orchid or whatever that flower is in the design layout, and so I axed that idea and I went ahead and started fitting in the flowers, and then once I decided where I wanted them, I glued them into. I'm going to continue to place these flowers where I want them, and I'm going to go ahead and put down my photos. I used my corner rounder to round off the photos because they did not need any cropping. This picture of Craig and I, my husband, took, and you can actually see his shadow in the picture. And to fix that, I used a Shrinky Dink butterfly and just simply covered it up where the shadow of his head is. And actually, it looks really cute. It looks like that's where I wanted it to be the entire time. So no one will be the wiser that I had no idea at first how I was going to fix that problem, but the butterfly did work. You can look on my channel and search Shrinky Dinks or Shrink Plastic for how-to videos on how to use shrink plastic in your projects. I'm going to attach it to my layout using some glossy accents. Glossy accents is strong enough to adhere to that slicker surface of the photo, and it's a really great product to work with. It's another one of those things that I think you should have in your collection. Just off camera, I did fiddle with the top of that one-page layout. I actually did add that cloud that I was telling you about earlier. So now this is where I realized that the orientation of that photo mat isn't going to work. I lay it down and go, well, whoops, that's not going to happen. So I did use the undo to very slowly and gently pull that panel up. And I cut the footage out, but I did use my heat gun to speed the process of drying it. I replaced the flower and added some more flowers to the border on the bottom. Now I'm going to corner around this photo and attach it to those two photo mats. And just here in a minute, you're going to see the finished pages. There are a few extra little touches that I added to this. Mostly some dot detail with a pen, this white gel pen. I used it on the flowers and on the background. I also used a black pen on the flowers and in the background just to give it a little bit of movement. That's a quick tip that works well. It does make it a little bit more whimsical, and of course it's just very precious. Alright, we're finishing this page up now. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you have, give it a thumbs up, share it on your social media. Stay happy and be a blessing. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.